Good. My talk will be about iPortal. It's a simple user interface for complex proteomics workflow. Now, many of you will have thought in the beginning, what is this talk going to hear? So I'm not talking about how do we install, manage, and distribute software among clusters, but I'm rather talking about this last point of these key questions. So which approaches are available for management of complex workflows, and how do you make software available for the users? So the standard interaction model that you have for clusters or in clouds is that you have a user base, they get access to the cluster and they use it. And if the cluster administrator, they are usually responsible for setup and maintenance of the hardware, the software, and they also do the user support. So for a specific group, for the Abersold lab, which is a proteomics lab at ETH, we have introduced kind of a new service model, this gateway service model. So we kind of put in an intermediate layer, a gateway between the users and the cluster. So the users don't have direct access to the cluster anymore, but they access it via a gateway. A gateway is just a website which in the backend can connect to the cluster and perform computations there. So you introduce an additional layer of gateway admins, and these guys are then responsible of installing and maintaining the software, and these guys provide the user support for the end user. And so you kind of take away a bit of pressures from the cluster admins of handling various user requests by channeling them through the gateway admin. And then you also take the pressure away from the users, because the gateway admin kind of takes a step towards the scientists. So he has to understand the workflows, the concepts, the pipelines, the tools that are there. He has some specific domain knowledge, but therefore is also can simplify the communication between the users and the admins by channeling here through. Of course, it has disadvantages when introducing an additional layer. I know that, but first let's talk about the benefits. So, especially for proteomics, you don't have just single tools, input, tool, output, but you have workflows, you have pipelines, and these tools are, as you already pointed out, they're horrible. They are different technologies. You create a TSV file, you need to convert it to an XML before putting to the next tool, so it's a nightmare for users to use that software or these pipelines in a normal way. So, this, for example, is a standard workflow for a protein identification. As you can see, if you do this with shell scripts, you end up for sure in a mess. If you have this gateway, you can abstract this. You can have this gateway, you assemble this workflow there, and the end user just has a big red button, analyze, and then all these steps on all different computing infrastructures using different tools and software is executed in background, and then the user just gets a nice simple result. This is very advantageous. You can hide away the complexity from the users. With this gateway technology, actually the one that we use at least, you can access various computing infrastructures. So if you have number crunching jobs, you can submit them to a cluster. If you have license-bound jobs, you can submit it to a dedicated machine. So this is all needlessly possible for the gateway administrator. You can create consistent workflows, so you do it as a gateway admin. It's standardized, it's harmonized, and not everybody is doing their own thing. So of course it needs some tolerance from the users that they are not allowed to hack as they want, but you get some consistency, you get some reproducibility. And you also have this centralized troubleshooting, so all the errors, they appear in the end in the gateway, no matter on which computing infrastructure they originally happened. So it's easier for admins and users to troubleshoot because it's kind of centralized. So the gateway technology that we use for the Abersold group, it's called GUse. It was Grid User Support Environment. It was part of an EU project. We got some funding from there. This is the reason why we picked it. There is plenty of other technologies which provide similar or same things. So it's just, yeah, the one we picked because we got paid for it. It is based on a Liferay enterprise portal server. There's a lot of stuff already available, you know, authentication, permissions. It's already in there thanks to this Liferay. You can develop portlets, so Java portlets, so standard technologies to develop your own plugins, essentially. So it's quite nice. It's based on these standard technologies. So for the view of the gateway admin, you have a very nice interface to assemble such workflows, such pipelines. It's relatively easy to do. It even has a GUI now in the latest version. As said, the great thing is you can support different computing infrastructures. So with this app, we can go to Brutus. There's a cloud plugin, so we can access open stack clouds or even Amazon. Yeah, currently I think we don't have the Hops cloud included on the iPortal instance anymore, but at least for some testing it was there. So that's possible. Then for the user side, it's much more simpler. Of course, they have, you know, this wizard type of user interface. Like I would like to do this analysis. They can select or upload data sets, and so it's held very simply. And they can then monitor their jobs in a very simple way, you know, just finished or error state. So for end users, you see, you abstract away all the complexity of the workflow. They just have big red buttons. So this is for all the good things. Now, what are the challenges with these things? So of course, you add an additional layer with this gateway, so we have increased complexity. So you don't have only the cluster, but you have also things between the gateway and the cluster that can go wrong, you know, while shuffling data or submitting jobs and everything. So what can you do there on this side? So what we have is we have automatic system tests. So every night, for example, test pipelines are submitted, and we monitor if they go through with the expected results, and if not, we are reported back. So if somebody changes something, you know, software gets updated on the cluster without telling us, or something breaks in the communication, then we get notified about this failure if the results are not reproducible. Of course, you need extensive monitoring. So you have the gateway to monitor, you have the cluster to monitor. It's just, yeah, this costs time to monitor all this. And we have version control for essentially everything on the gateway. So we even have version control for the configuration files in terms of reproducibility. So if somebody comes and says, I ran this workflow 1 year ago, I would like to rerun it exactly as it was 1 year ago. So we have it in version control. We can pull it back and let it run again, at least in theory. Practically, this happens rarely. Other challenges is of course you need additional manpower. So this doesn't come for free, this gateway. You need somebody which sits behind it, which talks to the users, which scientifically understands what they need. So you need additional manpower. So there's kind of two ways to get to that. You need a large user group, which has a lot of pain, which was the Abersold group 4 years ago. You need to have some standardizable work. So if there's too much of individualism within the work, you cannot standardize it with these workflows types. So this is also a prerequisite. And then, of course, you need money to hire such a gateway admin to do his job. Or what could also help is now this dedicated e-science team that pop up now at all universities. Scicor we saw, S3IT, and the University of Zurich, SES at ETH. So you already have these resources, these scientific type of, this research informatic type of people, you know, which are close to the scientists, which understand their language, which are biologists or chemists, and can take away pressure from the core HPC team, not having to answer essentially scientific questions. So what goes with that? So the take-home message is essentially, if you introduce a gateway layer between the cluster and the users, you can simplify the management of complex workflows of software, and especially you can simplify the management of user requests. You can channel it. That's a very great plus in time usage. That's it.